Hi y'all, I'm Angela, and today was day 12 of Camp NaNoWriMo. So for the last 2 days now, I've actually managed to make my word count, which is very exciting. We've been around the 2,000 word mark both times, and today I was done in like 2 hours. So I'm excited about that. A couple of things have been happening. Thing number one is that I have stopped writing chronologically. Basically, we reached the point on Saturday where I was writing what felt like the third scene where nothing happened at all. And to be clear, it's stuff that I was like still excited about and interested in, but I don't think it's stuff that any other rational human would be. And so I just felt really frustrated and like things weren't going anywhere, and so I just skipped and wrote a different scene. I don't know how that's gonna work sort of in the macro sense. In the micro, I'm actually getting into writing again thing. It's been going really well. And I am starting to feel a little bit more in control of my schedule and stuff again as well. I've now like worked out 2 days in a row, which again is a thing that I know is non-optional. And yet it's so easy to opt out. Attempting to also person at this time. And hopefully the rest of July I'm going to be really fortunate in having a level of flexibility that means I can build my schedule in such a way that writing should happen pretty easily. I am still feeling increasingly apprehensive about whether I should be doing this project at this time. This project is like really personal to me, and also part of me wonders if the premise is like fundamentally flawed in such a way as it's going to be like inherently problematic. I don't think it will be. I'm working really hard to make it not, but it's also hard to tell if I'm gonna be able to pull it off until it exists. I think that regardless of whether I'm gonna be able to pull it off, I do feel like it's a thing that I need to have worked with and I need to have processed and I need to have written. There's first off like this looming fear that this is A, maybe too personal, and B, maybe fundamentally broken on like a premise level, and I just have to keep marching forward anyway. So that really I feel like is not an issue that I can know until I have written the thing and then I can look at it and then I can address any problems. There's like that part, and that I think just is part of the waiting game. But the other thing is that I've gotten, as I think many of us have, really off script in terms of like what my plans were for this year. So initially at the beginning of the year, I was planning on writing short fiction during the camp in April. And instead, I actually ended up revising my first novel. So I got a second draft done of that, and that was really valuable. I'm working on the third draft of that. I'm theoretically working on the third draft of my first novel right now. Sorry, first novel. I ended up doing that instead of writing short fiction, and the plan was always this July to try and write 50,000 words and do like the proper nano thing, because I knew I wasn't going to be working this summer. I don't know if that's going to be true in the future, and this just seemed like the logical time for me to do it. So that's always been the plan. But this is my first time doing like a second world fantasy that actually has substantial world building. There's a lot in this that is really personal. I'm doing like 3 different points of view. Like there's a lot of stuff happening, and part of me just kind of can't shake the feeling that I'm not ready for this. Which, like, first off, I'm gonna ignore those voices until I'm done with this, because one of the things that I'm attempting to do is to see what the like writing 50,000 words in a month experience is like for me as a person. This is like a data set I want. This is a thing that I want to have done, and I'm doing this thing now. So regardless of whether or not the voice in the back of my head is like, maybe we shouldn't do this, I'm gonna do it because I want to have done it, and I think that there is value in that. But once I have done that, I'm a little bit uncertain because there's sort of a couple of things in my head. I feel like there's a lot of things that I need to be practicing and growing in as a writer that I could be doing arguably better with short fiction. Obviously, to a certain extent, you cannot learn to write a novel except by writing novels, and given that that is like mostly what I read and mostly what I'm excited about, I'm assuming that probably I'm gonna eventually focus mostly on novel writing. But there's a lot of stuff in terms of like basic plot structure and world building and like characterization and all of these things that you can really practice at any length, and that it's gonna be easier to practice with a shorter amount of words because a novel is long and takes forever. So part of me is like, oh, I should be doing more short fiction and less novel writing stuff. But I've also heard the advice a lot, which I think is probably really good, which is that when you are starting out and when you're like a newer writer, it's really important to finish things, even if you think that the thing that you were writing is bad. Because first off, all rough drafts suck, but also you haven't yet gotten to the point where you can tell if something's like genuinely not working until you finished it, and the finishing skill is like a really hard one and an important one. And so I guess I'm just like in the back of my mind trying to balance like, should I shelve this project? Should I come back to it later when I'm like a better writer? Or figure out, honestly, like get to a point where I can articulate my concerns with the premise and talk to people like as sounding boards about whether or not it's worth finishing. The good news is, not only do I not have to worry about any of that right now, I really shouldn't. As of today, I am back to having a full day's buffer, so I could not write it all for one day and still be on track to finish on time, which is very lovely. Excited about that. I am enjoying writing more now that I'm skipping scenes I don't want to write. And we're certainly moving forward. If you are nanoing, please let me know about that in the comments. If you ever had a project that you realized you weren't ready for or you decided you shouldn't write, let me know about that as well. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it the little thumbs up. If you are curious about my nano fate, feel free to subscribe. I sure would appreciate it. If you are writing right now, good luck with that. Bye, lovelies. Be well.